Dublin had fallen into a poor state at that stage.
It's hard really to describe how bad it was.
There wasn't any success really with Dublin. '63 was the last time they won in All-Ireland.
Kind of lyrical. We were coming from nowhere.
The start of the season we would have been 75-1 to win the All-Ireland, undoubtedly. It was his team, his army, 𝑻𝒉𝒆 𝑣𝒂𝒄𝒌.
I was in college between 1969 and 1974. I never told anybody in college I was playing for Dublin football. It would be an embarrassment. Nowadays, you can imagine if Conor O'Callaghan or somebody was in college, they'd be all over him. Nobody went to the matches, and when we played in Croke Park, all they did was open the Hogan stand, and there might be 200 or 300 people.
We'd go year after year as kids to see them, and we'd get beaten and beaten and beaten, you know. So we were crying out for success.
𝑗immy was the man that decided, I've got to do something about this.
Chairman of the Dublin County Board at that stage, because he picked Heffernan and allowed Heffernan pick his own men, which wasn't a done thing before, you know, and hence I think that's why they were so tight and so good.
Well, Kevin Heffernan was an incredibly good communicator. I mean, he's probably the best communicator I've ever had.
He never used bad language. He never raised his voice at any individual or at the team. But when you start talking through his teeth, you knew you were in serious trouble.
He was very demanding. He was tough, he was hard, but he was fair.
He didn't tolerate any kind of weakness. Once he's made up his mind that people had the ability, then he demanded that they show it.
He would come in and he'd talk to you, and he you know, like nowadays they have video analysis and any time you touch the ball and all that kind of stuff. But he had all that in his head.
Few laps, do a few laps there, take them around for a few laps. There was no such thing as that with Heffernan.
Well, we didn't have gyms in those days, so we didn't have the strength and conditioning stuff that they have nowadays in gyms. But we used to punch each other in the stomach, for instance. You know, I used to stand up with Sean Darley and he said, look, Sean, you punch me and I'd punch you.
That's the fella I used to do the punching into the stomach. Remember you talked about the punching in the stomach? Do you remember that? Boom,
yeah.
Boom.
He's the only man that could ever turn into a U-shape so fast. The fact that he had played in the All-Ireland series and won All-Irelands himself was somebody he looked up to. Of course, we all had a huge respect for him. If Kevin asked you to jump, you'd ask how high.
It was Kevin's gang, so hence it developed the 𝑻𝒉𝒆 Army, and then when you travel up and down the country to the matches, it was always 𝑻𝒉𝒆 Army. The crowds weren't there at the beginning, it just developed and took on a life of its own.
Heffernan had always put it into us, our next game is the most important game you're ever going to play. Not an All-Ireland final, it's too far away, it's too far out.
For 4 years there, we didn't get past the second round of the Leinster Championship. So it was a formidable feat to come from there all the way up. And as we went match by match, you suddenly realised things were developing.
But the day itself was even bigger than I thought it would be.
The crowds, the flags, the hats, the shouting, the singing, pubs were all packed. There was huge excitement.
7 months before, you had a situation where you might have had a few hundred at the match.
It took on a momentum of its own, you know, and it was absolutely brilliant to be part of it, you know.
One thing that 𝒉𝒆 would teach you was that you had to focus on the game rather than the crowd. Certainly on the big day, on an All-Ireland final day, and you ran onto the field, you might give yourself the luxury of taking in the atmosphere for a minute or two.
Look, all the talking was long before the match itself. We were ambitious and we were confident enough, so were Galway.
Galway were a highly experienced team that had lost 2 All-Irelands in the previous couple of years.
But my memory of it was just hard work. Give and go, give and go. I never saw who I was giving the ball to. It was just a blue jersey, a whiz of a blue jersey. You give it to somebody who's passed me at speed, you know.
Not give them time to think on the ball. Shut them down quickly.
Some of those tackles, if we did them today, you'd probably get jail.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to overemphasize it. Yeah, it was physical, I mean.
You took it and you went back and you looked for more, you know. It was part of the game.
Michael Rooney's goal in the first half, and that was a real hammer blow.
David Hickey down there on the zone end line, Harrison, and it's a goal, Michael Rooney! A goal for Galway!
It was the penalty saved by Paddy. that changed everything then. And then the atmosphere went wild altogether. Yeah.
And he saved it! He saved it!
That was vital that Paddy saved that ball and gave us the energy and the will to keep fighting and keep going and keep at it.
I think in the last 20 minutes, apart from the fact that Paddy's save urges on, I think our legs were a lot stronger and a lot fitter in the last 20 minutes than the Galway fellas. I mean, Micheál O'Hare listened back to the commentary, you know. This is what he said, the jacks are back and the Galway backs are jacked. You know.
The jacks are back all right, and the way they're playing right now, the Galway backs are jacked.
To see the sea of blue on the hill and to play into that end in the second half, it was huge, and it still is.
You couldn't say who was going to win until very close to the end, and we got the upper hand at that point.
We pulled away, we scored I think 4 or 5 points.
Kevin Heffernan down there telling them to stay back.
But Heffernan went down and he...
The crowd's away from running onto the pitch, and then Patty Devlin, who was the referee, who blew his whistle halfway down underneath Hogan's stand so that he could avoid the crowd.
We won at the end of the day, which was a huge achievement compared with where we came from earlier in the year.
And then suddenly you were up in the Hogan stands and Sean Doherty was picking up the cup. Like, it was just amazing.
It was a wonderful feeling. The Sam was pretty heavy to lift when we went to Guinness and filled it with 5 pints of Guinness, or 5 gallons of Guinness rather.
The Sam Maguire was something you dreamed of. Like, it was just unreal, unreal.
And it was an enormous achievement, and of course everybody felt gratified. And I suppose after the game and after that was all finished, people suddenly realised what had happened.
I never went back with stock.
See one of these things.
No, never knew they existed.
There you go now.
That's because you were captain.
Yeah. Captain in those days got one of those.
Is that right?
Yeah. I'm just saying the job I had trying to hold on to that from the Hogan stand.
Oh, you say so.
Oh,
you got that up there as well?
Yeah.
When
When I was
yeah.
leaving the stand again.
Yeah. There's a little dent in it there, Doc, is there?
That's one of the many questions people ask, what is the legacy? The legacy, I suppose, is now when you go to Croke Park in Dublin are playing, you have a full house of 82,000.
But I think it's had a huge impact in changing the whole course of Gaelic football in general. Dennis Law and George Best and all those were the heroes of Manchester United. Now suddenly you had Jimmy Keevan, you had Brian Mullins.
The people in Dublin were looking to identify themselves with something Dublin. The All-Ireland is what they wanted. We gave it to them, and of course they came in their droves.